Hey, everybody. Happy Thursday. We are back with our fourth episode of Womansplaining Live. I am Julie Barrett, founder of Conservative Ladies of America, which started in Washington as Conservative Ladies of Washington. And we are really trying to expand out into other states this year. And so we're going to talk about some of that today. Got our Utah state director here, and she's going to talk about some of the things that she's been seeing in Utah. They are just wrapping up their 2025 session. And of course, I live in Florida, and our session just started here on Tuesday. So I'll talk a little bit about that. But there's a big thing happening in Washington that I actually just discovered. About an hour ago. So I've been scrambling to kind of get all that information together so I can share it with you guys today. Big change, big development, I should say, on one of the worst bills of Washington session. And this is interesting. So if you are joining us either live on YouTube or on my X account at Julie C. Barrett, leave a comment. Let us know where you are watching from. We'll have our leadership team, I think, is going to be in the comments chatting with you all. Yep, there's Joy. So we'd love to see you. If you have any questions, please leave those in the chat. Also, before we jump into the content, though, I want to share with you an awesome conservative business in Washington State. He is sponsoring this episode of Womansplaining Live, a Brightside Mortgage, and my go-to guy, Stefan Reinen. He is in Washington State. Brightside Mortgage isn't just another big box lender. They're a small service-driven boutique mortgage company in Washington State, and they're all about putting you first. Unlike the big banks, Brightside believes in under-promising and over-delivering because that's just how business should be done. Whether you're buying your first home or refinancing or looking for expert advice in this crazy market, Stefan and the team at Brightside Mortgage will go the extra mile to make sure that you get the best possible outcome. If you are looking for a mortgage broker who shares your conservative values and truly cares about their clients, Stefan is the guy that you want in your corner. So if you're in Washington State and you need a mortgage, don't go with just anyone. Go with the people who share your values and work hard to serve you with integrity. Check out Stefan Reinen at Brightside Mortgage today by clicking on the link that will be in the description or the QR code, and be sure to let him know that Julie at Conservative Ladies of America sent you. All right, let's dig in. Let's get Leslie on here with us. Hi there, Leslie. Cannot hear you.
Sorry. How are you?
There you go. Good. How are you? Thanks for joining us today. Leslie's got a house full of kids, just kind of further proof that we are just citizens just like you guys. And we're just trying to get in there, get in the fight and make sense of all this stuff and make an impact and help you make an impact too. So Leslie, thanks for taking some time to join me today. And this was your first session branching out in Utah. So tell us about some of your top bills.
Okay. Well, session ends tomorrow evening, so it's still going on. There are some bills that are still could go through, but I have 5, maybe 6. We'll look at the time at that point, but 5 I want to go over. There was a bill in Utah, they were running background checks on homeschool parents, and we got a bill to go through to stop that from happening. So that was good. That one has passed. Firearm safety in schools, teaching kids how to be safe with firearms. That one got passed. That was good. Chronic absenteeism was a bill almost like the one in Washington. They are trying to bribe children with giving them cash. And in Utah, it was putting it in a college fund for them. But if they went to school, they got money to go to college. So those are that. Yeah.
And these are, did you say these are Republican bills?
The chronic absenteeism was a Democrat bill.
Oh, okay.
But the next two are Republican bills. Congregate Care SB 240, Senate Bill 240. It's expanding live-in facilities to include mental health facilities for youth. And then it's allowing telehealth. And then they're giving your youth direct access to an advocate. So that's that bill. But then 297, SB 297 goes along with that one. And it's giving as a parent, you can take your child to this live-in facility. If you happen to have lost your children taken from the state took them away, like DCFS, then they will take the child there. If you had your child taken away, you won't know anything that's happening. They won't give you access to your child or know what treatments that they're doing. But if you drop off the child and you give them permission, then they are supposed to make sure to get permission before they do any kind of treatment. But I wanted to bring this up because it can lead to what Washington is doing with their shield law or the 5599. If for any reason at all your child finds out that they can be shipped off to Washington, this could happen even if you're giving permission for them to treat. So that's kind of why I wanted to bring this up.
That's scary.
You're handing your children over to a state-run facility, and even though you're given permission for them to do something, in the end, you could lose your child. And the last one I just thought I should talk about is they're trying to expand their healthcare centers and schools. There's a few schools in the state that's already doing it, but they're trying to expand it. And we know here in Washington what has happened with that. Mental health care in school, or talking to a doctor through telehealth, which would then lead into the exact same thing. If they're going to allow this in school and somebody finds out that they can come to Washington for whatever they need done, help me out with gender affirming care.
Oh, yeah.
And then your child could go to school one day and end up in Washington State, and you won't have any idea, because of Washington State, they won't give anybody access and tell them where their child is. Washington State can legally kidnap your child.
Right.
So I wanted to bring those up, that these last two about the in facility, mental health live-in facility, and this in school healthcare centers are all Republican bills, and you could end up having your child disappear. Those are still on the docket as of last I checked. They have not passed, but everything is waiting to go through the floor and get voted on the floor, and that will be through tomorrow night. So
they have through midnight tomorrow to get these bills passed through this session.
I can't say. I don't know exactly the time, but
okay.
And that's probably a good guess, but I know it ends tomorrow. So
I think one of the important things that you've noticed in this session, and we're noticing in red states around the country, is while in Washington, you primarily are dealing with Democrats, because the Republicans, you hope for the most part they will vote no on bad bills, but that often doesn't happen either. And so what the problem that you have in a red state is you have a rhino problem, and you have rhinos that are pushing policies that are not conservative. They're not good for families. They're not good for the state and the country. And so that's one of the reasons why we at Conservative Ladies of America really want to engage citizens, because you can't just leave Washington or whatever blue state you're trying to escape from and go kick your heels up and live in a red state happily ever after. You really have to get in there and fight, especially because you know what will happen to your state if you don't get in the fight.
Right. And it's a majority Republican run legislature in Utah. So that's going to happen is the majority of the bills are going to be a Republican.
Right.
Just like in a Democratic state, the majority of them would be Democrat bills.
Yeah.
And Utah thinks they're very conservative. But I've seen a lot more rhino bills that I don't like compared to conservative ones.
Yeah. Well, great work. I'm super proud of you and appreciate all that you've done in Utah. And I know that you're looking at venturing into other states, maybe next session, or maybe even that still have ongoing sessions. So we will have you check back with us in another episode.
For sure.
Awesome. Thanks, Leslie.
Thanks.
Have a good afternoon. I guess it's still afternoon there, isn't it? Yeah, it's 2.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
Talk to you later.
Bye. All right. Well, that was great to have Leslie on, and she's doing such good work. She was at the beginning of this session. I could tell that she was just not going to make it through the Washington session. She's done so much good work for us in Washington, but it is really, really draining to work in the Washington state legislature. You're testifying. When we go in to testify, we're testifying against Democrats that hate us. And we're also testifying in front of many of the Republicans on both sides in the House and in the Senate don't really care for conservative ladies of Washington because we want to be transparent. We want to show people exactly what is going on. And that's not always a popular thing, especially when Republicans are doing things that you wish they wouldn't do, because the Democrats in Washington do not need the Republicans to help them to pass bad policies. And we think that citizens have a right to know what the Republicans are doing, because if Republicans aren't going to hold the line now while they're in the minority, what makes anybody think they're going to do anything different if they were ever to have a majority again? So it's really important. And that just carries on, like Leslie and I were saying, that just carries on into a red state. I'm here in Florida, and we have a huge rhino problem. We have rhinos that are in leadership in our state legislature. And so for me, trying to navigate the Florida legislature is trying to figure out who are the conservatives, who are the rhinos. How do you know the difference? And so it's been kind of a process. And fortunately, I've been able to sift through some of that and find some really solid conservative legislators that are working on good policies here in Florida. And the people, one of the things I really notice here is the people from Florida, kind of the Florida natives, or the people that have lived here for quite some time, maybe aren't the blue state refugees that have come within the last few years, but the people that have been here for a while, they understand that they need to fight. I would say a lot more so than from Washington. The citizens here are very engaged, and I think they realize, especially with COVID, how important it was for them to have a governor like DeSantis who made sure that that Florida was open. I mean, Florida for a while was one of the only states that was open. Didn't have mask mandates, didn't have vaccine mandates. So there are a lot of things that people lived through while they watched other states like Washington that had Inslee had emergency powers for 975 days. And we had the Chaz Chop thing in Seattle. I mean, it was crazy. And, my kids were all still in school during that COVID era, and they were out of school for almost 2 years. It was ridiculous. And so kids in Florida were able to go to school. And I think that a lot of people here are grateful that they had that. So anyway, if you are going to be a blue state refugee like I am, and you're going to go to somewhere that is red and more conservative, please engage in the fight. And we are really working hard to spread our wings throughout the country and get involved in other states. So if that's something you're interested in joining us and working with us, please do reach out and connect with us. So let's talk about what's going on in Washington right now. So Washington legislature is this week, most of their activity is on the floor, debating bills and then voting them and passing them out of the chamber of origin. So a House bill would need to be voted out of the House by March 12th to stay alive this session. And a Senate bill would need to pass out of the Senate by the 12th. And then what they do is they cross chambers. So if you were a House bill, now you're going to go over in the Senate and repeat the process and vice versa. So these bills still have a long way to go. And I like to remind everybody that a bill isn't dead in Washington until the end of the 2026 session, because Washington operates on a biennium. So any bill filed this session that does not pass this year, it is automatically reintroduced in January of 2026. So that's just something to keep in mind. We like to encourage people not to get too excited and take victory laps. Be very cautiously optimistic that zombie bill is going to stay dead. So want to talk to you about a few of the bills that have been passed this week that we have been kind of tracking all session. A couple of them have been passed with very strong Republican support, which does not make us happy. When we fight and citizens fight to oppose a bad bill, especially a bad Democrat bill, it's very defeating to see the Republicans go all in to help it pass. So let me start with my little list here. So today, Senate Bill 5129. This is a K-12 education funding bill. It's called an MSOC bill. That stands for materials, supplies, and operating costs. It's a huge addition to what they actually came back for an MSOC bill last year at the end of last session and passed it with almost unanimous support. And so they came back again this year in like a lot more money. But the Republicans who are out there saying no more funding for OSPI, all but two Republican senators voted for this bill. And so the two senators that you want to thank are Senator Jim McCune and Senator Phil Fortunato. So really grateful to both of those gentlemen for voting no on this bill. It will now go over to the House, where it will most certainly get support and pass too. The House has a K-12 funding bill as well. Forget the number off the top of my head, but that one is probably going to go to a floor vote before the 12th as well. So it'd be interesting to see if one or both of these, I think the House bill is a much bigger funding bill. So I guess if you had to pick one, you'd want the Senate bill. Senate Bill 5098. This is a bill that adds a number of sensitive places where firearms are prohibited. And this bill passed out of the Senate yesterday. Interestingly, this bill had two Democrats that voted against it. One of them is Senator, I think it's Cortez. He's the new senator in Washington's 18th legislative district, which is like the Vancouver-ish area. That was a Republican seat. So my guess is that was a strategic vote to, protect his seat. I'm not sure, but that would be my guess. I forget who the other Democrat was that voted against that. Also passed this week was Senate Bill 5632, which expands Washington's shield law. Leslie talked a little bit about that. Washington has a shield law, which basically makes Washington a sanctuary state for abortion and so-called gender-affirming care. The Senate Bill 5632 comes back and strengthens that shield law from 2023, which was House Bill 1469. So not a good bill. I think it was passed on party lines, so no Republicans voted for it. So that is good. Trying to think of what else passed. There is House Bill 1321 is probably up for a vote at any time now. That is the bill that allows the governor to authorize uh, militia coming in from out of state. So let's say the federal government wanted to send in the National Guard and, for the border or what have you, or send in another state's, military forces, National Guard or whatever to help in Washington. They would have to have the consent of the authorization of the governor. Now, there are a number of amendments that have been filed on House Bill 1321. And so what happens is those amendments will be debated on the House floor. And one of them is very interesting. Representative Jim Walsh from the 19th district, proposed a kind of I'll call it a trolling amendment, but his amendment basically rewrites the entire bill and makes it in alignment with the Constitution. And Jim is very good at these sort of strategic amendments. We know that they won't be adopted, but it does allow for talking points. And all of these debates are, available on TVW, and sometimes the media picks it up. So it's a good way to get the alternative message out to the voters of Washington state. So that's coming up probably this week. Now, we may go past 30 minutes here today because I really want to get into this House Bill 1296. This bill will repeal what is known in Washington now as the Parents' Bill of Rights. It's Initiative 2081, which was an initiative that they got all the votes for it, and then it went to the legislature. The legislature passed it last March. And the reason that they passed it legislatively is because then they could come back and repeal it right away in 2025. If they had let it go to a vote of the people and it passed on the ballot, they would have had to wait 2 years. 1296 is one of the worst bills of the session, and you've probably heard a lot of people talking about it. It's made national. It's gotten national media attention. There was an amendment in committee by Representative Travis Couture where they would do immediate notification if a child had been a victim of a crime or something, and the Democrats voted down that amendment. And you probably have seen clips of that debate in committee on that bill. Well, I got curious today about what was on the House floor coming up for bills to be voted on, and 1296 has been added to the floor calendar. And we sent out an email earlier today about House Bill 1296 and get people to email your representatives, ask them to vote no on this. About 3 hours later, an amendment was filed. Now, I'm just trying to pull something up here. Like to think that maybe we had something to do with it, but I don't think so. I think they've gotten a lot of pressure from all this national media attention. So this amendment is a striker amendment. It basically rewrites the entire bill and it writes it better. So I'm gonna tell you. Let's see. I'm gonna try to see if I can bring it up on my screen here. Okay. All right. Hopefully y'all can see that. Okay. Let me go up to the top. Okay, so we are at the top of this amendment. Strike everything after the enacting clause and insert the following. So at the top of the bill, they're rewriting everything. And so it's 16 pages. So we're going to go through this in depth, but I just wanted to show you. And then at the very end, it has to show the effect. So what does this amendment do to the bill? And as I said, it changes the entire bill. So I know that's like you guys can't read that on your probably So I'm going to read to you, I'm going to tell you kind of the highlights. This is what I've been trying to work through over the last hour and a half since I found it, because I wanted to share this with you. I think it's a huge deal. I'm not sure really the strategy here, because if you recall, or maybe you don't even know, but earlier this week, the Democrats filed in the Senate, they filed a Senate joint resolution, which is a bill that would actually become a proposed amendment to the state constitution, for abortion, so-called gender affirming care, even IVF. So the timing of that was really suspicious since we're past cutoff. It seemed to me like kind of squirrel, a distraction from some of their other bad bills. So I'm not sure if these are connected in any way, but I think there are a number of different things going on right now in Olympia with the Democrats that citizens should just like be discerning, be on guard, and just kind of watch watch what's going on. So I'm going to take you through. So part 1 of the bill was unchanged. Part 2 of the bill was unchanged. Part 3 is changed, and parts 4 and 5 were also unchanged. So we're going to go through part 3 of House Bill 1296. So this, so the amendment that was proposed by Representative Monica Stonier, she is the prime sponsor of House Bill 1296. So the fact that she's writing the Stryker amendment leads me to believe that this is the intention, is they're going to just override the original bill. So this amendment removes the broad enrollment right for all children, regardless of status, and the option for private home-based instruction, focusing only on public school parents. So when I saw that, I was like, does that have something to do with, does that impact homeschool kids? No, it does not. What they're doing is they're paring down the bill. So this bill only focuses on children who are enrolled in Washington public schools. They have classroom access for parents is expanded to include curriculum and textbook review. The amendment redefined education records to align with FERPA, which is the Federal Education Rights. Joy put it in the chat for me because I forget what the official records, not personal notes, with no fees for inspection and reasonable fees for copies. Immediate notifications for crimes against the child, shootings, detentions, or custodial interrogations, replacing the 48-hour timeline. So what the Republicans were trying to do in committee was, there was a thing that said, thank you, Joy, Federal Education Rights and Privacy Act. In the previous version of the bill, well, the amendment hasn't been adopted yet. So the way the bill currently reads is that the school had 48 hours to notify a parent if their child had been a victim of a crime, if there had been a school shooting, if the child had been interrogated by law enforcement. Now, this amendment would change that to immediate notification, which is a very good thing, which was what they were going towards in the committee. So they're basically doing what the Republicans wanted. The amended version has opt-out rights for surveys and sexual health education records and curriculum and things like that. It adds rights to file bullying complaints, requesting special education info, and appealing denials. It specifies no private right of action and maintains exceptions for abuse and neglect cases. So what they're saying is that if a child has been abused or neglected, or if that's suspected of a parent, then the parent wouldn't have all the rights that this is saying. So the bill grants broader initial rights, but the amendment is focusing the bill only on public school kids. The records access, the original version was much more limited in scope, but the records access now allows 45-day access per FERPA. Julie, are you talking about making a request for a full and complete student record? I don't think I am. Joy. I just forgot what I'm just reading off from what's in the bill per the FERPA thing. But I think that what you're saying about requesting a full student record is based on the FERPA guidelines. The amendment prohibits fees for inspection of records and aligns the definitions more explicitly with federal law. Again, the notifications was changed to require immediate notification instead of that 48-hour notification. The amendment shifts from notifying parents of removing a child from campus. There was no provision in the existing bill. So a child could be removed from campus, let's say for an abortion or something like that, and parents wouldn't be notified. The new version says that parents have to be notified if a child is removed from campus. The amendment also adds for bullying complaints, and then it removes medical service notifications. One of the things that is in the amendment, and I was able to go search this out really quickly, but it doesn't touch any existing laws. So you have Senate Bill 5599 and House Bill 1469 that were passed in 2023, allowing children access to so-called gender affirming care and abortion, and the right to stay in a host home or a youth shelter if they're accessing those services. So this doesn't change any of that. Parents still wouldn't have access to that. So it's keeping it's not repealing any of those existing laws as it pertains to protected healthcare. So this is a big deal. At least I think it's a pretty big deal. I think I'm really curious about the strategy with this, because there's definitely a political strategy going on here, and I don't know. I have some speculation, and I will get into that. But I wanted to share with you. You might be wondering, well, what's a Stryker amendment? And so I want to kind of go over what that is. So, which one do I want? Okay. So, Stryker amendments are used when lawmakers want to significantly alter a bill's provisions, often in response to committee feedback, public input, or negotiations, without having to draft a new bill. This saves time and preserves the bill's existing procedural progress. So basically, by doing this Stryker amendment, they can completely rewrite the bill, but the bill retains its current status. So it still can be on the floor for a vote. It doesn't have to go through the whole process all over again, which at this point in the session, technically they wouldn't be able to do that, but because they're Democrats and they have control, they can suspend the rules if they want to, I suppose. It's a compromise tool. They facilitate compromise by allowing legislators to reconcile differing views or incorporate amendments from multiple sources into a single cohesive proposal. So this compromise tool is, this is an interesting aspect of this. Remember I said that in committee, the Republicans had tried to get an amendment to change it to immediate notification. Sometimes what will happen is there will be a compromise where the Democrats say, okay, if we put this amendment on it, or if we take your amendment, will you vote for the bill? I hope I'm wrong, but I suspect that's the kind of thing that has transpired here. And you are going to see a Republican vote yes on this bill now that it has been changed. The bad stuff in the bill is still there, with the gender and affirming schools. Parents still wouldn't have notification if their child was being called a different name, different pronouns, being given different clothes at school. So the Democrats are really, none of the existing laws are changed. And that the initiative 2081 was very narrow in scope. And I don't know if a lot of parents realize how narrow in scope it was, because it didn't change existing laws. And so I think that I'm concerned about this compromise tool piece of this, and we'll see. But that's kind of what I suspect. And critical thinking, try it, says not sure you can call them Republicans in Washington. You might have a point there. Um, Second string Democrats or Democrats that live in red districts that wouldn't get elected. And if they ran as Democrats in their red districts, they wouldn't get elected. And a lot of the sort of rhinos, some of the biggest rhinos in Washington live in very red districts. And I do think they're Democrats, but they have to run as Republicans so that they can win. Okay, efficiency. Rather than withdrawing a bill and introducing a new one, which restarts the legislative clock, we kind of already touched on this, a striker keeps the process moving forward under the original bill number. So examples: refining policy after committee hearings, addressing legal or technical issues, shifting the bill's focus while staying within its original intent. So I wanted to share this with you guys about what is a striker amendment, because these are all things that my team and I have been learning along the way as we've been digging into this, because we're just, concerned citizens who wanted to find out what was going on. So as we learn these things, we like to share them with you so that you understand too. And once we know, how things work, it allows us to be more impactful. So hopefully you learned something new there. Significance of a striker amendment allows the legislature to adapt bills dramatically during the session, reflecting evolving priorities or addressing flaws without derailing the legislative timeline. Transparency, because they can replace the entire bill, strikers make it clear what the new proposal entails, though they can also complicate tracking changes if not well documented. And then here we have strategic use. This can be a tactical move to bypass opposition to the original bill by presenting a fresh version that might garner broader support. So there you have it. So this is kind of an interesting turn of events. I did not have this on my bingo card for this bill, for this session, but I think I would say it's a very strategic move by the Democrats, because it's definitely it does make the bill less bad. It's still a bad bill, but it's less bad. It was really, really bad. Now it's just really bad. So I think this was a good move. I'm very concerned that you're going to see a Republican a vote on this, and that will be very unfortunate, though not completely unexpected. And one of the things that we have seen on, because we've gone through all of these gender inclusive schools policies throughout the last, many years that they have been in place. And the gender inclusive schools policies have been supported by a few Republicans in the House, and usually one or two in the Senate. In the House, Skylar Rude has consistently, and he's leadership in the Republican House caucus, he has consistently voted yes for the gender affirming schools policies. So is he going to vote yes on 1296? I don't know. I hope not. But the current version of 1296 is kind of just advancing that gender inclusive schools policies, which is really harmful. That's probably one of the most harmful things that we're seeing with kids in Washington right now. And I'll share a little bit of our story. My daughter, who watches our live streams sometimes, she called me, I don't know, a week ago, and she said, "Mom, I could tell that you were trying to share parts of our story and what happened to me in Washington. I just want to let you know it's okay if you want to share that. If you think it will help will help people, you have my permission to share that." And she's 18 now, so I've tried to just try to respect my kids' privacy and try to be very respectful with the way that I share things and how much I share things. But this daughter was in public school in Western Washington, and her sophomore year, she was socially transitioned. by her high school. They were calling her a different name. They were calling her different pronouns. They had changed her school record. And we had to be very careful when we found out about it, because in Washington state, if you are not a gender affirming parent, the state can take away your child. And we had already had her twin sister taken during a mental health crisis and moved into a youth shelter. And we were fortunate that this was in 2021 before several more bad policies were passed. And we were able to rescue her and get her out of Washington so that we could be participants and decision makers in her treatment. But we didn't go public with this information. I did share it with Todd Herman, who is a good friend of mine, and he shared the story very delicately on his program. But January Littlejohn here in Florida, she and her husband sued over the school socially transitioning their daughter. I forget what year it was, but she got to go to the president's address the other night, and she's just been such a courageous voice for what the schools are doing to these kids. And I commented to her on a social media post the other day, it's so important to have that voice, because there's parents who are like we were in Washington, afraid that if you speak up and you talk about what's happening, you're going to lose your kids. And in a state like Washington, California, New York, Minnesota, you are at risk of losing your kid if you speak up. And so I guess, the best thing you can do is just get your kid out. If you find out it's going on, get them out of public school, get them out of Washington. And that's what we did. We pulled her out of public school right away. But anyway, the gender affirming schools is a really, really bad thing. And it's really harmful to kids. It's really a mind game on them, because they're going by one name at school, one identity at school, and then they go home and they pretend that, they're they're their real name and pronouns at school. So think about that. If you're a kid, and a lot of these kids are special needs kids, so they're already dealing with cognitive issues and things like that, and you're putting this responsibility on them that, like, it's so messed up. It's abuse of children. So we'll leave it at that. I've gone about 15 minutes over time. I see you all are having a nice little time in the chat. I don't see any questions. So hopefully this was informative. And it looks like a lot of people from Washington are watching. And hopefully that information on House Bill 1296 is good information. I will be watching to see when this comes up for a vote on the floor, and we will certainly let you know. So if you aren't already, be sure that you are subscribed to our Substack. That is the best way to get breaking alerts and calls to action. And we did just put a call to action out this morning on 1296 asking people to vote no. We still encourage you to tell people to vote no. So you can go to our Substack for those links. But we will be back again live next week, Thursday, March 13th. The 12th is for Washington. That is the cutoff for bills to pass out of their chamber of origin. So we'll have a boatload of bills that have passed out of chambers, and we'll have those to talk about, as well as what's moving and what's going on here in Florida. We just started our session on Tuesday. I didn't even touch on any of the stuff that's going on here in Florida. So I'll bring you some of that next week, and maybe I'll do bill of the day videos between now and then. So thanks so much for watching. Please do share this replay so other people can get up to speed on House Bill 1296, especially if you've got friends in Washington, parents and grandparents that need to know what's going on. That'd be great and greatly helpful. Appreciate you guys watching. Appreciate the support, and I'll see you again next week.